This conference will now be recorded.
Um, yeah, man, it's good to see you as well, man. I ain't seen you in what, 20, 30, 40?
I don't even have the count, man. Long enough that it needed to be said. And here's the thing. I do feel like I see you, because of your updates or maybe an email thread here and there,
Right.
but we haven't physically been in this same place in a long time, man. And
I know. I
that's
know.
we got to change that somehow after this pandemic wanes. We're
Yeah. So
together.
where are you located now?
So I'm about just shy of an hour north of San Francisco,
Okay.
and yeah, and I'm at home. I've been work from home since March 2020.
Wow.
So very very little. We live in a rural area, so we're basically on a farm,
Okay.
and that just means that we can do a lot of what we need to do here. And other than bringing in groceries and essentials, it's been a real quiet 12 months, man, for real.
Man. So my daughter was out school out that way for school. She went to USC. Um,
Yes.
so she just graduated last year, I guess, on virtual graduation. She's going to head back out there this year in May to go to a post-bac school, a post-bac program.
Congratulations.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, she got it from her mama's side. She didn't get it from me.
I believe
I,
that.
I did something right, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and remind me, how many youngsters do you have?
I got two daughters. I have two
Okay.
daughters. So my oldest who just graduated from USC, and then my youngest who's a senior this year, who
Hmm.
she's both my daughters are like night and day. So my oldest is, here's the box, paint inside that box. My youngest, she's, putting wheels and putting a sun over here and,
Yeah,
birds over here. And so
right.
she's my artist. So she's looking at some art schools. Actually, there's a school out there in West Coast, Otis, that she
I'm
just
sure.
got word that she got into, and
Hmm.
um, so yeah, she's it's a trip, man. This whole parenting thing, it's for the birds.
Yeah, there's a lot happening, man. There's a lot happening, and I have two daughters as well,
Okay, what about that?
plus two older that belong to my wife, before I was in the picture.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we parent four, and it's a journey. I learn a lot from them. I learn a lot by studying what my own motivations,
Yeah.
and it's been a great way for me to just become a better person, especially the daughters, because I grew up in a very male oriented environment. My dad was an old school alpha dad, and so I really needed to learn how to have a better relationship with other parts of my energy, and my daughters require that.
Yeah,
My wife does too, but yeah, it's been a
no
fast.
doubt. So, and again, we obviously are talking like everybody knows our story. So, Jaja and I go way, way back. I'm trying to think because our moms were friends, and I
Yeah,
think that's how we had the little get together and so forth. And it's Taha, right?
yeah. Taha's my younger brother. That's right.
Yeah. And so we're similar age. And so how's he? Is he doing all right? Everything good on that
Yeah,
end?
health. He's healthy. He's
Good.
thriving in the Sacramento area. He lives
Okay.
north of me. So we've both have been in California now for, maybe 2 decades or something.
Wow.
I'm real happy that he's here, and there's nothing like, having your brother close enough that you can, connect when you need to.
No,
Yeah.
I hear you because my brother's he's in Ohio, and so he's
Yeah.
um,
Tim.
just that
Yeah.
distance is hard to obviously get together.
Right. Right.
Um,
It's tough.
so yeah, and then just families getting together. He has two boys as well, and so it's tough, just like anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
so,
That's right.
but yeah, man, I appreciate you taking the time to time out of your day to kind of I guess more or less talk about the past as far as being in school and what your thoughts
Yeah,
were on money back in the old days.
that's right.
You,
We're
you
gonna do
kind you
this.
kind of
Yeah,
old school, man.
for sure. 48 years old, And so, I definitely have walked these different roads. I'm excited to talk about this topic. I don't think there's really anything more powerful for anyone, but especially for Black men and for people who are interested in moving the civil rights movement to the next phase. Our parents and our grandparents did work. Now it's time for us to do some, and this is a lever we can definitely pull. Financial education and independence is a big flag I like to fly. So I'm happy you invited me to talk about it, and I'm an open book, man. I'm just gonna, I saw some of your questions, and any questions you have, I'm open to answering those. I'm gonna be frank and just, share as much as possible with you.
Well, absolutely. So, but let me just go ahead and jump in my little intro, and then we can kind of dive into it here.
Sure.
Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Pat Brown. I am a financial advisor with Edmonds Duncan Investment Advisors out of Lawrence, Kansas. Played football for the University of Kansas many years ago, and enjoyed my time immensely. And I met a lot of great people here. Became very passionate about financial literacy for student athletes, which led me down this path of interviewing former student athletes with the hopes that current student athletes can learn from some of the successes and failures and develop those habits a little sooner than later in life. That way they're better prepared for once they get out in the real world, whether it's to go to the next level sport-wise or to work your typical day-to-day job. And I always also, Judge, I always read off just the definition of financial literacy, because I'm always under the impression that financial literacy has this negative connotation to it. So financial literacy is the possession of a set of skills and knowledge that allows an individual to make informed and effective decisions with all their financial resources. And again, with being a student athlete, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but the habits that you learn as a student athlete, I think, are no different. I think they correlate a lot with just financial literacy, just learning the basics, learning the fundamentals, and just keeping up with them, repeatedly, getting your reps essentially. And I think if guys and girls can kind of take that into consideration, again, that learning curve, we can definitely narrow that down. So at any rate, so I know, guys, hopefully folks have been watching current student athletes as well as parents. But my guest is Jaja Jackson, who played basketball at the University of, I don't even know, should say University of Harvard. Played at Harvard. Harvard alone, the name alone is just
Harvard
amazing.
University. So, yep. Harvard College. That's right.
Harvard College. So just a very, years of just following you, whether it's online, just the stuff that you've accomplished. If you can just kind of talk about kind of what you're doing, and save a little bit for the end, because we kind of dive into that as well. But your days playing at Harvard, if you can just kind of touch on that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. So, we go back to Ohio, which is where I went to high school, and had probably some of the best experiences of my life as a student athlete in high school. Played basketball all 4 years, was able to achieve an all-state status in Ohio, and then turned that into a little bit of a walk-on opportunity at Harvard College. And I played most of my time was spent playing junior varsity basketball in the D1 program. But for a walk-on, I was really, excited and motivated, and got to do, a lot of things that I didn't really know I would be able to do at the college level. So that was the backdrop for an amazing 4-year experience at Harvard. And doing that, just opened my mind to how important the topic of financial literacy is while in college. Now, we're going to come back to that. But since Harvard, I went on to work at McKinsey & Company as a management consultant, helping businesses launch other businesses and grow and compete in a global world. I started a real estate career and also a software technology business in 10 years, and now have continued in the real estate practice. I work in private equity with a real estate focus based here in San Francisco, California.
Awesome. And so I do want to touch on one point. I think, and I've had another buddy of mine who was on here and did a little interview, and I don't want anyone who's gotten to this level, whether it's D2, D3, D1, anyone that's been able to have the opportunity to play a sport that they love at a higher level than high school, I think is amazing. And I think their story still matters
Yes.
because the thoughts of being able to understand or even get exposed to financial literacy as a student athlete, I think is something that certainly needs to be addressed. So you can kind of go back, you walk on freshman, sophomore year. Did anyone ever talk to you about whether it's credit, whether it's savings, whether it's budgeting? Was that ever talked to you at all?
That was not really a topic. The coaching staff did some light introduction to just college life, and
Yeah.
in that would be a footnote, very lightweight information at that time. Now, keep in mind, this is the late 90s. So we're talking, this is way back, but I would consider what was shared to be thin at best. The majority of what I learned about financial acumen, to develop financial acumen, was from my own search to understand why there were haves and have. And it became pretty clear to anybody can see that there are lots of different Americas. There are lots of different people with different financial means. But my goal is to try to understand that. And as soon as you begin to try, you will quickly see that it leads you to a necessity to understand finance, money, investing, saving, budgeting. All these things are critical. And so that's really where my interest began to grow. And I started to look for independent resources to learn this. In addition, my parents, my mother, she was a teacher. My dad was a professor. They didn't have a lot of money. So I watched them really wrestle with finance as a young person. And I knew that finance could be empowering or very frustrating and crippling. So I was already tuned into the topic before I even got to college. But there really wasn't a format to learn about this upon arrival.
So then with you having walked on and so forth, because were you getting any type of stipend at all as a walk-on?
No. And this is the case for a lot of student athletes. Some of your clients are going to be people like me who kind of took a walk-on path. And then you're going to have guys who were aggressively recruited. My brother, for example, he played at a NCAA championship level 4 years with a full scholarship and a stipend. That's a different experience. We could talk about that. For me, there was no stipend. In fact, I was introduced to debt because I needed to finance my tuition and room and board. And so I got a quick education in student loans and work study jobs and trying to make all those numbers add up to be able to stay in school.
Wow. So then, and that kind of takes me to the next question. Were you more or less kind of trial and error as far as some of the decisions you made about money? Hit your head against the wall a little bit, as far as, hanging out, eating out or whatnot, and then realizing, okay, well, I don't necessarily have enough money for this later on.
Yeah. There was certainly some trial and error. One of the characteristics of people who have the discipline in sports to move to the next level is that you can apply that discipline in other parts of your life. And in my case, I was lucky in that I was very disciplined about my financial life, even early on in college. So, the errors I made, I would consider lightweight errors. I always had enough to make sure I could continue with my path, but I spent money on some things I shouldn't have, and I call these rookie mistakes, but but I bought more wardrobe than I really needed, even though I was in climates, right? So here we go buying like that extra shirt for the party scene that I really didn't need. Or you know, things like my phone bill. Now this is real OG, old school.
Yeah.
Used to have to get on a telephone, and if you were calling from state to state, you were going to pay fees. And in that period of time, you know, I had a girlfriend in Ohio, but I was in Massachusetts, and I would call on that telephone. I had bills sometimes for $300 for that particular month, and those kinds of things were terrible, terrible moves. Now today you get you have your AT&T or T-Mobile or whatever. You can call anywhere, anytime, but there are still things like that. Your data plan gets swollen, or you're buying too many plane tickets to go back home on holidays and things like this. My freshman and sophomore year, I had to learn all those things, and I learned some of it the hard way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. I remember back in school we had the calling cards.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
you know, you buy so many minutes and everything, and you call and they cut you off, boy, once you hit that little limit.
That's right. That's right. The biggest learning from that period of time was to learn how to prioritize needs. You really, you know, for everybody who's interested in this, might be going through it now, just taking a minute to take out a pad, or, you know, open up a notes in your phone or whatever, and just write down, what are the most important things that I need to survive and then succeed or excel, and putting those in a list, and then mapping your money, whatever the source, back to those essentials before you spend any penny, nickel, dime, dollar, $100 on something else. That is the most fundamental step. And you'd be surprised how many of my peers in college did nothing like that. And they just kind of get it to the end of the month or the middle of the month, and it's like, oh man, I'm short on this, or I'm short on that, or, you know, problems, real problems. But that can be solved with just a simple prioritization.
The answer is always so simple. It's just the follow through. It seems to be, you know, the struggle. And same thing. I have teammates the same way. You know, we get our stipend checks, and you know, the first of the month, and you know, day 2, day 3, they're broke. So, and again, I don't want to make it sound like I was just killing it in college. By no means. You know, I learned the hard way as well, just by doing knucklehead stuff. So again, just trying to narrow that gap for a lot of these current student athletes.
And Pat, you know, the thing is, I think I mentioned this earlier, but like, if you call yourself a student athlete or an athlete, you're not there because you're not at that point, and you can't own that identity if you don't have discipline. So there's no excuse not to use discipline in your financial. You wouldn't go into the gym without having done your reps and your curls and your this and your that and having a regimen. So don't do that in your financial life.
I like that.
Yourself down. And any athlete with pride has to like respond to that. Now, if you don't have the knowledge, that's different. And no one should be ashamed of not having information about finance, because a lot of us come from places where there's no financial information. So there's no shame in that. But once you have information, then you have to do your reps, and you should have the same discipline in your sport, your studies, as you do in your finance. It'll carry you through life.
Yeah. And again, with a lot of guys that, you know, get to this point of being a student athlete and they make it on to college, I think the exposure is just not there until later on. You know, with me, you know, straight from the suburbs, and we just didn't talk about the stuff at all. We didn't have an exposure to it. And so it wasn't until, you know, late in school, you know, my senior year, that I took a course, and it just kind of shined the light on it, and I just became embarrassed that I didn't know about it. And so it's just one of those things, man. One of those things.
I agree.
So looking back at college, and you kind of touched on this, but what would you say are some of the worst financial decisions you made, and what were some of the best, if you had any?
Yeah, well, you know, okay, this question, I have kind of a unique answer here. I reflected on some of the rookie mistakes earlier, but I was reflecting on this, and I feel like the worst and best decision I made were actually the same thing during those college years. We're just focused on the college years. In fact, I hope we talk later about how I reached financial independence later, because that's a different phase of life. College is a very unique period of time, and this relates to my answer. The best and the worst thing I did during that period of time was taking on student loan debt. Now, it was the best thing that I ever did because I was investing in myself. I was investing in my future. I was investing in changing the way the marketplace looked at me as an athlete, right? How employable am I? How loan worthy or credit worthy am I? All that changed because I went to college. Now, and at that time, debt financing or finance through loans was really the only way it was going to happen. I got some scholarship, got a little bit of grant, but I had to get those loans. Now, here's the thing though, debt is the hole in the bucket when it comes to financial planning and a financial future. So while it was the best thing, it was also the worst thing because I left college with a very, very large bill. Began to try to start to pay down after graduate school because I had to pour more debt on top of that to get my master's in business administration at Harvard Business School. And that was expensive. So, you know, if that isn't handled properly, you have set yourself up for, you know, just a lot of fees, interest expense, cost, even before you've begun to earn. So that's why it's tough. But if you don't invest in yourself, it's a long road to your peak earning years. And all the data shows that those who don't have college degrees or beyond earn dramatically less over the course of their lifetime, not even close. So you got to make this investment in yourself, but you got to be aware that you're taking on debt. And that means then don't take on additional debt. Don't use that credit card to buy BS. Don't use that credit card to run up the phone bills. Don't use that credit card to look extra fresh. Just focus on your debt to invest in your education and your future, and then be mean and lean on all other sources of debt.
Yeah, the debt again, or credit card debt for that matter, and I talk about this with some other guys. You know, here in Lawrence, we could just go up on campus, you know, get a free T-shirt, a pack of Skittles, and we just fill out an application. The next thing you know, you get a credit card in the mail. And so, not knowing nothing about credit cards, you know, I was again one of the guys. Hey, let me get some Skittles. Let me get a pack of Hubba Bubba. And through that process, you ruin your credit. You come out of school, credit's just smashed, and then you're trying to get a place to stay. You got a family, you're building a family, and you know, wife wants to get a new house or a car, and you're paying this ridiculous amount of interest on this car. But had you, you know, obviously managed and maybe understood or learned more about credit, you could have worked with it a little bit better. And so again, I talk to guys, and when I do talk to some student athletes, that's one of the things I want to, you know, express to them is that you have to understand how credit works because it's just like fire; it can burn you or it can feed you. So I agree with what you're saying. You can't get to the promised land without that debt that, in your case, but it puts you in a better position to pay it back and then obviously move forward. So I definitely understand. That's actually a good answer. So looking back in college now, what do you wish you had done different in regards to dealing with your money?
You know, we're so young at that time. You know, it's easy for old guys to say how young people are in college. You know, and if someone watching this is younger, please don't you know, be offended by me saying you're young. But relative to where you are when you're 50 or 60, you're young. And these things are new. And I think for me, looking back at when I was younger, I wish I had started saving sooner. Now, easy to say when you're older and you're not there trying to make those few pennies you know, get you through a semester or a quarter or whatever, right? It's easy to say I wish I had started saving sooner, but I really do. And here's the thing. When I was young, I would say things like, well, I don't have that much money, so what's it going to be for me to save $10 or $25 right now, and put it in an account or something like that. It just seemed like it wasn't going to do anything, so I might as well use that 25 to go out that weekend or something, right? I'll save later. I'm going to earn later. I'm committed to it. I'll catch up. But the time value of money, the money multiplier, the exponential growth of money, you cannot run faster than that time value of money. Even if you're going to think you're going to be a super baller later, and if you're going to make tens of millions of dollars, we'll see, and maybe you can catch up. But I wish I had started earlier with small investments in own savings type accounts. We can double click on what types of accounts are smart. Pat can show you what's smart there. But even just small bets on stocks, like little company bets, where if I bought I remember I got one of the first Apple Macintosh laptops. I had it in school, but you know what I didn't do? I didn't buy any Apple stock.
Yeah.
I should have bought, instead of buying a laptop and some peripherals, I should have bought a laptop and a little bit of Apple stock, right? That time might have cost me $25, $50, $120 or something like that, and it'd probably be worth $10,000 today.
Yeah.
I wish I had started earlier, and I wish I had made little bets on companies that I felt were emerging or were doing a really good job, or that I used all the time. Companies I use. Usually, if you're using it, other people are using it, and that's how I would do it if I had to do over again.
All right, I like it. You would be pretty well with that Apple stock. So the next question is, how have the habits that you formed in college affected life after college, or have they?
Yeah, they definitely have. It's like most things in life. Good habits amplify, and bad habits demote. And can. So the good habits around being organized, prioritizing for my financial structure objectives, those things are skills I use to this day.
Yeah.
And it has worked out. Knock on wood. This is just history. Every year, my financial status has gotten stronger. I'm, from college, leaving college, through grad school and post grad school, and it's all based on those fundamental practices that I took the time to seek out during the college years, and to not get addicted to or seduced by trying to floss or live outside my means. Even when some of my classmates and some of my superstar athlete friends were doing more than they really should have been doing, I did not. Partially because I couldn't, because I knew better than to do it, right? And so those kinds of habits, they will stay with you and they pay off in the long run. So that's what I would say. Getting off to a good start was really good. Now I have it's been a 30-year journey, but now I have financial independence of such that I can do what I want to do.
Yeah.
Want to do it, I can invest in businesses that are my own or that belong to other people. These are all things that would not be possible if I didn't start, early.
My man, good answer, boy. Woo. So what are some of the pitfalls that you would hope your story could prevent to young student athletes out there now? What would you, if you had to, sit in a room full of student athletes, what would you say to them?
Well, some of it, I've been dropping little parts of it as we've been talking today. As I mentioned, avoid the debt monster, especially consumer debt. When I say consumer debt, that would be for anything other than your education or for real estate. If you're buying a home or a condominium or something like that while you're doing your studies, fine. Take on the debt, it will pay off. But for other things, avoid it. Beware of thinking that you can save later. Don't believe that. save now, even if it's small amounts, and make small bets on companies that can go big. They may not happen, but they might. And if they do, you win big time over time. The other pitfall would just be maybe what I call like invincibility thinking, right?
Mhm.
Part of what makes a lot of athletes good at what we do is that we have confidence that we're going to succeed.
Yep.
It tends to be something that you carry to the court, you carry to the field, and then you carried it into your life. Well, unfortunately, in finance, time always wins. It can be in your favor or it can ruin you, and you will not defeat time. Nobody defeats time, even the best athletes. So,
Yeah.
invincibility thinking is that you will deal with finance later. You will always have enough money. You might even come from a church or from a family that has told you that God will always provide you with money. And I have a faith, I believe that to be true, but you also have a part in that process. You have
Yes.
to study it, and then you have to use the practices that allow that blessing to open up in your life. You can't just have a wish that or a belief that you're Superman and therefore, or Superwoman, and therefore money's going to take care of itself. You have to take care of your money, and you have to start early so that time works for you and not against you.
Invincibility. Boy, you dropping nuggets today, huh? It's like you are primed for a conversation like this.
Hey man, if I'm going to use your time, I got to get ready.
That is awesome, man. No, I like that last example, and I think it. I mean, so many truths to that. It's amazing, and I felt susceptible to as well. Growing up, I'm invincible. Hey, if
Yeah,
I get hurt, I'll recuperate. Hey, I don't need
yep,
to save. I'm in college. I do it later when I get a
yep,
job.
yep.
Um, so that hit on a lot of points, and yeah, I definitely appreciate that answer. Um, so now, we kind of get into this what I call bonus round, if you will, and um, as far as making to the next level, whether it's the league or what have you. Um, I mean, did you have any aspirations for that, or were you just saying, "Hey, let me just go in and get through school and go work on my MBA at that point"? Or
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think I'm actually glad you asked that. I saw you might have some bonus questions, and I saw it was for the folks of those of us who are going to make it to the league, whatever that league might be.
right,
And I'm like, well, some of us will, but most of us won't, you
right,
know. And so here's what in my particular case, I'm a 6'4". At that time, I'm still 6'4", but around that time I was a 6'4", 200 and maybe 15-pound shooting guard.
okay,
And for those of people listening who understand basketball, that's small for the
yeah,
NBA. That's super small, which means I either have to have an insane three-pointer or have electric quicks.
hmm
I had neither. I had a good Clyde Drexler mid game. I could jam Worthy a little bit. Then I had like speed, but not electric quick. So I could do that math and figure out, by my sophomore year, hey man, like the likelihood of you, Ja Jackson, going to the league is low. So
yeah,
I started shifting my time, attention, and my mind towards my own personal championship of life. I was like, well, okay, how do I want to win at the game of life?
yeah,
For me, like I said, a lot of that had to do with financial independence.
hmm
Um, and so I think that for people who are thinking about going pro or who do or don't make it, have a plan for if you do make it, a lot of things will fall into place. You'll have bigger stakes, but you'll also have more cash,
hmm
and you'll be able to, come up with a plan that fits that lifestyle. But for the majority, have a backup plan
yeah,
that that depends on your mind and not necessarily your body, uh,
hmm
to achieve the type of independence and the lifestyle that you want. This is especially important for people of color or who come from disadvantaged backgrounds.
yeah,
We have to find ways to make up a lot of ground in a single generation because many of these communities have been held back for multiple generations. I'm African American. That's 6 to 7 generations being held back deliberately. And so my plan was, how can I make up time? Can I do 2 generations of wealth creation in one lifetime? And you know, think about how you do that in a way that still lets you express your soul, have fun, do the things you want to do, is worth your time. You know, and that you can do that whether you make it pro or you don't. You can make it pro in your own world.
Yeah, I think again, it just might be exposure. I think a lot of guys and ladies don't realize that you can make it, essentially pro, not to be cliche, but pro in life,
Yeah,
and just have a different mindset to take it to a different level versus I didn't make pro, I'm just going to spiral essentially, um, because I wasn't able to make it. So yeah,
that's
that's
right.
that's definitely good.
That's
Um,
right. In fact, a lot of athletes see so I mentioned that I did the math and figured out I wasn't going to be pro.
mhm.
At that moment, a lot of times there's a threat to become depressed, because for many years, all those years in high school, all that work in college, like, well, now I'm not going to do that. What's my alternative dream? And
Right.
if you do get that negative feeling going, or you do get into a depression and you spiral, you've left a lot of what you earned on the table, figuratively speaking,
Yeah.
because you have some skills that you developed as an athlete. You have some people who know you and know your work ethic.
Yeah.
Skills and people are what create outcomes and opportunities. So you have a
I
lot.
like it.
If you set it aside and you just focused on the negative, then you won't turn those things into your future. So I took all of that and then engaged it in a way where I could create an alternative dream and become as much in love with that dream as I had with being an athlete and outperforming, my peers on a basketball court.
That's cool. That's real cool. So, and that does take us to this, kind of not gray area, but so, obviously, get through school, MBA.
Yeah.
So now just kind of talk about, and you touched on it at the beginning, but what you're doing now and basically going pro in Jackson world. Because when I've paid attention to you, I've watched you kind of, I don't know if I'm gonna say climb the ranks, but I've always seen you moving forward, and I've always
Mhm.
admired you for that. Um, so now, I mean, you mentioned you're financial independent. You just investing in companies at whatever you want now. I mean, that's the dream, to do what you want to do, when you want to do it. And there's a buddy of mine. I still play basketball. I was before the pandemic, but there was a buddy of mine. Every time we would play, every Friday morning, after we play ball, we sit there, we talk,
Yeah.
and just talk about, he's a business guy, and we just always talk about business, this and that. Um, and one of the things he asked me something about life, and I always respond with quality of life. In my mind,
Hmm.
quality of life is essentially what you just described: being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it.
Yeah.
Family, having time for family, so forth. And so that's what you just described was quality of life. And
Hmm.
I think that's a good thing to aspire to, which again, hopefully we have some young student athletes that are listening and watching. But yeah, if you can just kind of dive into everything you've been doing, just self
Yeah.
promo, John Jackson time, hit it.
Well, that's not going to be easy or natural, but I'm going to give it a
Yeah,
shot.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so what I'm doing now is, I've always had a passion for the arts, for two-dimensional painting and drawing, and also for sculpture. And this is how I chose my business career. I looked for a industry that was large and that I knew would be around. So I knew, like, energy, healthcare, food, and real estate. Pretty much have to have those no matter what else is going on. And real estate requires an artistic eye. Whether you're building a really funky office building for new companies that want to move in, or creating a home where people need to have comfort and safety, creativity matters, right?
Right.
So decided real estate was going to be my thing. I also lived in a neighborhood where we had a lot of old houses, and I saw the power of like what's now considered like buy, renovate, and flip.
Yeah.
Then nobody was really talking about that, but they were doing that in my neighborhood, and I was like, that's really powerful, and it's creative. So I started a real estate career, and that's been my main jam all the way through. Now, along the way, real estate and technology got overlap. That's how I ended up working at Airbnb for about 5 years, helped them launch their real estate practice. And then now I work at Iconic Capital. Iconic is a private equity shop, which just basically means they take money from individuals who need that money to be invested. And then I focused on helping that money find its way into really interesting residential real estate projects. And I like doing that. That's fun. And then and then in my private life, that's part of why we live in the country, is because I'm setting up a studio where I can continue to make artwork, and I can make sculpture. And I like it when that artwork then goes into real estate, into apartment buildings, hotel lobbies, and things like that. So it becomes a big circle of creativity and real estate, and that's what I'll probably be doing for at least the next, until I'm not enjoying it anymore. But I love both those things, and it's an interesting outcome from those years in college when I was like maybe some of the people you're talking to, just looking for something that I would be interested in doing. And so this is where I would end. Get really acclimated with your likes and interests, because that will lead your heart will lead you towards a career, be it on the court or the field in sports, or to something else, if you know what your interests are and if you're truly passionate about it. I wrote a book called the Start Here book.
Yeah.
Start Here book. You can find it on Amazon. Just put in Start Here and Jackson, and it should come up. But that is
the link as well for these.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, perfect. But that should help you if you're having trouble thinking about your dream. What do you want to do? It can help you do an inventory of your interests and what might be fulfilling to you over a long period of time. Because here's the one thing that you can be sure of: it's going to take a long time. It'll take a long time to get where you want to go. And then once you get there, if the universe is willing, you're going to be doing that for a long time. So do something that you really enjoy and make sure you know what that is. And if you don't know, keep searching, keep looking, but don't ever give up on aligning your spirit, what you're doing physically and with your time. So important.
Man, all right. How come we don't talk more often, man?
Hey, man, because you busy. You over there helping people get their financial house in order. You don't have time for me.
Man, I get you out there in the country, man. I'm surprised the internet worked out there.
I am too. You better hurry up because it'll go out.
Well, hey, listen, I definitely appreciate, like I said, it has been too long. All joking aside, I'll have to stay in contact a little more, but I appreciate your words of wisdom, man. There are a lot of nuggets in there. And again, I hope that, these young kids that are young kids, man, I feel old. Hopefully these student athletes that are listening, they can definitely take away from this. So I appreciate your time.
Hey, I appreciate you, Patrick, and everything you're doing. Thanks for inviting me to this discussion, and reach out anytime, brother.